You are listening to another AlwaysMoto production. The AlwaysMoto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections. The results, we interview your favourite riders. It's the AlwaysMoto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
That's right, Moto fans. This is episode 196 of the AlwaysMoto show, proudly brought to you by technicmotorsport.com, duramoose.com.au, and Yamaha Motor Australia. I'm your host, David Hogan, the physiotherapist who knows the injuries and fitness needs of our sport of motocross and supercross. And this week, we know what the bikes need from Blue Crew because we are doing a YZ250F 2027 model intro. That's right. We went out there to QMP. We were invited out by Yamaha Motor Australia. QMP is Queensland Motorsport Park. For those that don't know, Australia actually got to be the first to touch and ride the 2027 models from Yamaha this year. For whatever reason, we were the first ones to get the bikes in country. We beat America, we beat Europe, so we got to do our media launch first. So you will have seen all of our content coming out across the different media platforms here in Australia first, which is a cool thing for us. And we here at AlwaysMoto got to be a part of it myself. David Hogan got to go, got to ride it. Took the wife along, Jen Hogan, as well. She was able to give us a hand with both some testing opinions and some camera work, which was awesome. And we both also got to ride some of the pro team bikes, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in this show. So this episode is going to be a massive one. So first off, let's make sure that we get all those bits and pieces covered off at the beginning here. Like talking about what motorcycles all have in common from Yamaha, Suzuki, Kawasaki, Honda. They all use KYB or Showa suspension. And that Yamaha that we were on the weekend, it was running KYB. And what do these suspension companies have in common here in Australia? Well, they have an Australian distributor, and that's technicmotorsport.com in Sydney. So why would you use non-genuine seals, wipers, bushes, and other consumables when those genuine parts are available, perform better, and are only a day away with shipping? Well, head to technicmotorsport.com. It's your place to go for those genuine KYB and Showa suspension kits, from seals to fork tubes to internal individual components and A-kit suspension sets for both KYB and Showa. Technic has it all. Use the Find My Bike tool on the site till you find compatible parts, and there's new parts being added daily, so check those out as well. If you're not in Australia, that's okay. Technic has a currency converter, a shipping calculator, and they ship daily with DHL to most countries. So basically, you can get this from anywhere in the world thanks to Technic, because they convert the currency so it works in your values, and they ship it to you with DHL pretty much anywhere. How good is that? So check out technicmotorsport.com for all your suspension needs. Now, don't forget our other supporters. We mentioned duramoose.com.au, Yamaha Motor Australia. Barkbuster handguards are on board. We normally have our Barkbuster handguards segment in the Dave's Diatribe because they're deflecting everything. We're not going to have that tonight. We'd normally have our Funnel Web filters segment where we're telling you about getting a clean filter so you can go to those events that are coming up in the list that we do. We're not going to have that section tonight as well. Pivot pegs, Tech 167 3D printing, all on board for their show support. Appreciate having them on board as always. And of course, the AlwaysMoto community, you can join it in two ways. One, we want you to join via the YouTube because there's a small donation part set up within the YouTube community to keep us being able to get to these events and putting on shows like this one. As well as just attending other races so we can get more and more content out there. And if you can join the AlwaysMoto YouTube community, we can then get you into our AlwaysMoto Legends chat that's on Instagram. We have one going there in Facebook as well, for Messenger as well, for people who aren't on Instagram. So we can get in there and have plenty of things going on. You can stay in touch with what's going on in the motor world, also get our opinions firsthand, also get some back and forth sneaky opinions from behind the truck as such, as they say. When we're at these races, we don't always put everything out. We sometimes save it for those groups. So join those communities and you'll be able to get some extra information. Don't forget, we've got our AlwaysMoto t-shirts available as well. They're $25 plus postage and handling, and you can get one of those by emailing info@alwaysmoto.com. You put t-shirt order in the subject line, and we'll send you some details about payment via PayPal and sizings that you need, and we'll get that sent out to you ASAP so you can rock that t-shirt at your next race. Find all of these supporters, the discount codes that go along with them, duramoose.com.au. We have a discount code for them. Check it out. It's AlwaysMoto10. But follow the links in the show notes or on our bio on our social pages to get those links direct to those sites, get those discount codes, and you'll save yourself some money and you'll be supporting the people that are supporting AlwaysMoto, which is always a good thing. All right, enough with the intro talk. Let's jump into the show. And of course, let's get straight to this Yamaha launch, the YZ250F. Why don't you join the Blue Crew? Well, plenty of people are going to be wanting to join the Blue Crew after they swing a leg or over the bike, this new bike, the 27 model, or after they hear this show. Trust me, it was very, very impressive from the get-go. Now, why is this bike impressive and why is it worth talking about? Obviously, this machine has won a lot of shootouts over in different countries, from magazines, things. Everyone talks about it being the bike in the 250 class. Obviously, they've won plenty of titles. You got to think Hayden Deegan, Cole Davies this year, both winning the Supercross titles. Cole having a good run here in the Pro Motocross, but Hayden's won the last two outdoor championships in America on this bike. Before that, there was plenty of others going really well, Justin Cooper springs to mind. Christian Craig's won titles on it. Colt Nichols won titles on it. There's been plenty of guys on a 250 Yamaha that have won plenty of bike races and titles with these machines prior to this model. But the fact that they've taken a risk and they've improved it in areas or tried to improve it in areas and made big changes to it is the part that's interesting in it. There's been plenty of Australian success as well with Yamaha recently as well. Obviously, we were talking about Blake Bohannon in the 85s getting a world championship, and he's the Pro Motocross 85 champion as well, Blake. Hayden Draper got the MX3 championship on one of these 250 machines. Lachlan Turner in the MXW got a championship in this class as well. And then, of course, 450 side of things. This was the 450 last year is what's led to these changes in the 250. And so this year on that 26 model that was the previously updated model for the 450s, Jed Beaton's your MX1 champ in Australia. Aaron Tanti got second overall in that championship. He won the last two rounds of the overalls for that class as well on that 450. So what I'm saying is that this platform has been put to use by many a champion in recent times, and it's succeeding. So it's interesting to see what's happening here. Now, in terms of some other things, if we go back, I was at the launch for this YZ250 when they made the last lot of major changes and overhauls for it back in 2024, or at least the 2024 model. It had lots of things changed then, and they already talked about the bike at that point being narrower and having the chassis being a bit more improved, and they'd expanded a lot more to that Power Tuner app back then. Well, they've taken this bike in 2027 so much further than that, and it's impressive to see what they've done with it, despite being as well as they have been. They haven't rested on their laurels, as they say. They've taken the risk, they've taken the leap, and they've made changes, and it seems like, from what we got to experience, like this is the bee's knees for 2027 at this stage. Obviously, we haven't read in all the other 27 models, and if we get a chance to do that, we'll make comparison back to this one. But at this point in time, this YZ250F is going to blow your socks off. Let's get into it. So what's new for 2027? And a lot of the case, it is the fact that this bike is just engine, chassis, and other bits and pieces are all updated. Now, quickly flip back a second. I'm doing two things at once here. Or three things, actually. I'm testing some stuff right now, too, for this show, people out there listening. There's no audio, there's no video with this one because we've done a video separate on that. Check it out on our YouTube. Check it out via the link to the full noise written content as well that we've got for this article. But we are about to embark on an American trip to catch up with a bunch of different riders and stuff, and you're going to see all that shortly. But I've been testing gear earlier, so I'm on just the audio setup tonight, but I've got the PowerPoint open from Yamaha about the bike, and I've got my notes open about the Yamaha, as well as the screen for me recording the audio aspects. So I'm working over 3 screens. I've got a little bit of a different setup than we usually would, so I'm a little bit out of place. So if there's a couple of pauses and stuff, I apologize, but we're getting through it and we're trying to cover every aspect of this bike. The video was a bit of a surface scratcher. Obviously had some cool visuals in terms of what the bike looks like and riding it and whatnot. And the article gives you some decent content, but I'm hoping that when you hear the extra details here that I'm going to cover in this podcast, that each of these 3 bits that I've put out covers everything you're going to need to secure that mind to say, yeah, I'm going buying one. All right. So in terms of sales for Yamaha, the YZ250F is already number 1 in motocross sales from June 25 to June 26. And the number 2 machine, yeah, you probably guessed it. It's the YZ450F is the number 2 motocross selling bike in Australia. So the number 1 and number 2 machines are both Yamahas. It's the 250F and the 450F. So that's pretty impressive in itself. What else we got? Yep, they've gone through all that. I'm just rolling through. So this one's bike, the YZ250F, they have a few catchphrases that they like to bring along with each of these new model launches. For this year, it's generation fast. It's sharper, faster, more refined, easier to ride, which equals easier to ride fast. So that's what Yamaha is claiming. And they had a focus with this bike to develop more power and torque, which is pretty impressive because it's already pretty powerful and pretty torquey. They wanted a more compliant chassis and suspension. They wanted to shift gears less often, which it's a 250F. You basically have to throw revs at it and throw gears at it to keep it going. But they wanted to try and change that. Interesting thought. Less engine braking, improved starting, no adjustability. Like they didn't want to have to adjust the clutch, so they've gone hydraulic. That's a big talking point. We'll get to that in a sec. There's a lockable ECU, which was previously a part of the 450 upgrades last year through the PowerTune app. That's available on this 250 this year. And while we're on it, if you put a password in it, make sure you know what it is, because if you forget it, it's not like you can click forgot password and get it sent to your email and reset it. It don't work that way with these things. It's basically a one-time set. If you forget it, you're screwed. And I mean, you're absolutely screwed. You've got to go and get a new ECU to get that bike unlocked. It will not start without that password. It's that foolproof. It's that theft proof, but it's also stupid proof. If you forget, you're stupid and you're paying for it. So don't ever forget that password if you set it in that ECU. And the other part that they're bringing up here is that there's been plenty of ANZAC, as in Australian and New Zealand rider, input into this machine. You got to think Josh Coppins, who was at the presentation, he was talking about his input into it. We've had plenty of guys over the years build into these things, and you got to think we had him on the show last year when we talked about the 450, but Jay Wilson, the Aussie, the ex-Supercross champ, Australian champ, the ex-Australian motocross champ, he and current, or not current, he's working, he was second, I think it was, but he's multi-time Japanese champ in recent years. He's living in Japan, developing these Yamahas, doing a lot of this testing, knowing what he would be riding in Australia as well. So he's putting that to work. So there's plenty of Australian and New Zealand rider input into these machines these days for Yamaha, which is awesome. So let's get to some of the engine changes. Now, the big talking point is the extra RPM of this motor. It's changed valve systems completely from last year. There is a different intake as well, and this is to do in part with the noise decibel limit changes in racing. That Euro spec is down to a 109 decibel. So the intake had to change and the muffler had to change to try and be compliant with those. Now, the intake noise is a little less. It's not as throaty at that intake, and it's a little mellower on the ear hole on the exit. It still barks very loudly, but it's a little tamer. You might not have to wear the earplugs. If you're an earplug wearer and you're sort of 50-50 on wearing them, you could probably take them out nowadays. But there are ways to make this get that bit of, because it's obviously restricted a little bit more at that airbox point. You can get it opened up by something as simple as the Slater Skin airbox cover from J&R Motorsports that we've promoted on the show before, because we've got one on the WR250, and that will increase that intake velocity and airflow. and that will then perk this thing up even further than it already is. And considering they made these changes to that intake and muffler, the motor is kicking its ass in terms of staying above what it was previously. So they've revised the valves, they've revised the airbox, they've got a different cylinder head and different compression ratio. It's got a lighter and a higher inertia crank and magneto, and they've revised the timing chain and the tensioner. They've also done a different balancer, revised the starter system, new compact clutch, and that's to go with the hydraulic system, and it's got a durable transmission, which means that there's a bunch of things they've changed. I mentioned in our video that if you were to compare the parts fish from 2025 to the 2026 model motors, there's not many parts that are carrying over in this system. It's very much all new. Now, the finger follower system on that valve, what does that mean? There is a bucket normally on the past motors, there is a bucket system, which basically is like a cap over the spring, and it sits and rubs up against the valve, the cam, and as the cam turns around, it pushes the bucket up and down. Well, with a finger follower, there's basically a lever in there instead of a bucket, so that changes the height that it can lift up and down to lift the valve further up out of the way, letting it rev a bit further. That valve lift increased. It doesn't sound like much, right? But it makes a massive difference. It went from a 9.6 millimeter lift to a 10.2 millimeter lift, which meant it could have a safer increase in RPM to another 700 RPM. Now, that finger follower is only on the intake valve, but on the the exhaust valve, I want to say exit valve, but it's exhaust valve. It's still the bucket system there, but they've changed the cam, they've changed the material on the metal surfacing, and they've changed the exhaust valve springs, which has then sped this all up as well. So it's made a massive difference to that motor package there, and that's the big part of the change of the talking point. But you then go further. Like I mentioned, they changed the head and everything and the barrel and all this. There's a different piston. The piston from 2025 will not fit the 2026 model, and that is because there is a different compression ratio. It went from 13.8.1 to 14.1. It's a larger diameter piston, piston pin. The gudgeon pin is bigger. Because of the extra compression, they had to up the gudgeon pin to take the load, so it's different. The valve, the intake and extort valve ports is different. There's so many changes here. In terms of the cam chain and this area, they've got a new camshaft sprocket that went from 32 teeth to 34 teeth. They've got a new crankshaft sprocket that went from 16 to 17 teeth, and their chain links on the cam chain went from 114 to 118 links, and they relocated the tensioner into the cylinder to the cylinder head to suppress chain whip, so that it basically ran smoother through there, and that's part of that reduced inertia that they're talking about. So this is all part of increasing that RPM, but making it a smoother, less compressed ride, and as in that engine brake compression, as well as then we get to these crank changes. So they changed the crank. They've got a new crank shape altogether. It's increased in shaft diameter from 30 to 32 mil. It's reduced in weight by 3% and supports that extra high RPM. They've also changed the rotor inertia. So it's a heavier rotor, a lighter stator, stable engine control at low speed because of it, and it has a clearer torque feeling as the throttle opens because of it. It's actually similar or the same as what they've done to the YZ450 the previous year. In terms of the transmission, they've made the gear width has increased. There's a number of dogs increased, and they're 5-speed optimized gear ratios. So they've changed the ratios a tiny bit to fit what they said in that beginning, where they were trying to have less gear shifts per, ride basically. So they're trying to change that in terms of that. Then we go to the clutch and we get to that hydraulic clutch system. Now, Yamaha for years, forever, on this model has only ever had a cable clutch. You had to adjust it throughout a moto or long moto because you would get some heat in it and it would lose and it would fade away. You'd keep it tensioned up with a little spinner knob on it. Well, with a hydraulic clutch, all that is gone. It's a consistent feel from beginning to end. You're going to have to get used to it if you were a cable man forever. But trust me, once you're used to it, it is absolutely perfect. From me coming from a hydraulic clutch, riding the WR with a cable, I didn't notice too much difference. I haven't had to adjust it very much, if at all, during long rides, but I'm also not a clutch abuser, so that's probably saving me. But when I go back to this hydraulic clutch unit on the YZ now, it's just like I've always had. It feels the same. It's light, it's consistent pull. I haven't had any dramas with either of them, the cable or the hydraulic, but it just means that this hydraulic is a much better, longer lasting sort of setup in terms of that thing working throughout and just over the lifetime of the bike as well. All right, what else we got? They've changed the starter motor to a Mitsubishi starter motor, which is interesting. And then the chassis wise, when we get to the chassis, now they had thinner mounts and a narrower chassis in 2024. Well, that was their big selling point, but they've changed things. They've gone to asymmetrical mounts, rear motor mounts, which is what they did on the 450 last year. They've done that on the 250F this year. They've revised the front mounts. And they've also changed that down tube from where the headset is, where the triple clamps mount on, that tube that runs down the front of the bike and holds the front part of the motor. They've revised that to basically stiffen and increase flex at the particular areas they're after to give it a stable feel. And it's done just that. Now, with all that, those motor mount changes and that frame change at the front there, they've changed the suspension, but they've not just changed it because of trying to get the same feel and directive turning and all those sorts of things. They've also done it to make it a bit plusher. And believe me when I say it, it is plusher. It's a softer feel initially, but it still has good bottoming resistance. Now, in a stock componentry, these motorcycles have damn good setup in these KYB suspensions from a stock platform. Coming from a guy that used to always basically rip the suspension out before he'd almost even ridden it once and changed it when he was on KTMs and even on to the Sherco that he's had recently, I've still been running that WR dead stock and I can't fault it yet. And this YZ was exactly the same. So whatever they're doing in terms of the Yamaha setting in these KYB suspension sets, they are doing a damn good job. All right. So suspension, we've done that. Styling. Of course, they've updated the styling a little. They've changed the plastics on the side panels a little bit. They've changed the graphics on the radiator shrouds. Other than that, not much. They've changed the seat cover to be the same as what the YZ450 had last year. It's got that directional, easier to slide forward, harder to slide back on the seat cover setup. So that is all something that, they're minor changes to it, but they're changes all the same. The other thing that they've changed that sort of caught my eye was the rear brake setup. Now, they've actually gone to a smaller rear disc, which has meant some smaller changings in the caliper and where it sits, which is then all to do with saving a little bit of weight. It's also going to reduce the power of that rear brake. Now, I'm not stoked on that in theory, but on track, I didn't notice anything with it just yet. And we'll get to the riding experience a bit more, but I didn't have a massive amount of time on this bike, and we'll get to that. But I didn't notice that change at all at this stage. Maybe with some more riding time, I would, but it seems that what they've changed is not that big of a deal for the majority, let's say, of people that are going to ride this bike. All right, Power Tuner app. Of course, the Power Tuner app still sticks around. There's not massive changes here. Obviously, we mentioned that theft aspect with the password control on it, but the rest of this setup is still the same. You still got ability to change fuel injection, ignition, traction control, launch controls. You can measure lap times. You can do your log of your races, maintenance, put setup notes in it. You can do pretty much everything you want through this app. It's got to be one of the best additional features to a motorcycle that isn't on the motorcycle. This Power Tuner app from Yamaha is fan-damn-tastic. The more I've used it with the WR, I'm more and more blown away by it. So if you're thinking about buying a Yamaha and another bike, the Power Tuner app should seriously make you buy the Yamaha on itself, because you can adjust it to do just about anything you want from any level of rider that you are. The Power Tuner app is the bee's knees of adjustability for the dum-dums that don't know how to pick up a screwdriver, because you do it on your phone with a touch screen and you move sliders along. It's that easy. Anyone can do it, trust me. So that is a massive selling point. This Power Tuner app just kicks ass. All right, let's just scroll through. We're going to get some specs here. All right, some specs. Comparing the 26 to the 27 model. They're basically the same in the specs aspects in terms of overall heights and widths and lengths. There is a 5mm shorter height in, how does that work? Yeah, 5mm shorter in height for the 27 model. So it lost 5mm, and that's in terms of that chassis and suspension setting. Everything else is pretty much the same. They changed 0.4 of a degree in the caster angle. But the one thing that is changed that is actually kind of interesting, the bike is 2 kilos heavier in 2027 than it was in 2026, which is interesting because normally we're talking about they save some weight here or there. Yamaha has actually gone heavier. Now, I believe that some of that weight will be in the frame changes and the hydraulic clutch. There'd be a little bit in the muffler from that weight for the noise emissions sounds, the decibels, the 109 decibel limit. The motor itself, the changes they made to the motor that I went through, pretty much all of those things made the motor lighter. So there's very little there that would be affecting it. So I believe those other three things I mentioned are where those 2 kilos have come from, but you don't notice that 2 kilo change. So just curious that that's what's popped up there. I wonder if in next year's iteration of this, generation of models, if that changes a little bit, but we'll have to keep an eye on that one because, yeah, it was interesting to see that it went up from one year to the next. Let's mention the price while we're here. $15,049 including GST is the right-away price from your Yamaha dealer here in Australia. There is a Monster Energy edition available, which to my understanding is literally a Monster Energy kit with some black plastics on the bike. You get a black front guard, front plate, black side panels, black rear guard, different sticker kit. It is basically, what's that? It's $100 dearer. It's $15,149 right away. So the Monster Energy Edition, $100 extra for the different plastics and stuff. That's just obviously the licensing to have the Monster logo on the machine. But if that's what you want, $100 extra, write it away. Now, of course, there is plenty of GYTR parts available for it. They've got a special intake airbox, bash plates, radiator guards, ignition clutch covers, a whole list of stuff. You can get it all from your Yamaha dealer and you'll be away and looking pretty on that new YZ250F with those GYTR parts. All right, let's get into some riding impressions now. I've spent a fair bit of time, like I mentioned, on the WR250, but I've ridden that YZ250F 24 model. I was expecting this thing to be good, but I wasn't expecting what I got when I rode out on the QMP track for the first time on this 2027 model. Now, we didn't get stacks of time. The Yamaha intro this year was a little different to previous ones that I've attended. Normally, we sort of have 10 bikes. There'll be roughly around that 8 to 9 to 10 media guys attending. We all sort of have our own bike. We ride in and out. We get some adjustments done. We keep riding. We do our photos. We do our video segments. We do our pieces to camera so that we're standing behind the bike, and then we get some more riding in, and then that's the day done. Well, in this case, they actually had a bit of a 2.5 day event, let's say. They flew us up. We watched the QMP, the final national. On the Monday, we got to ride our race team bikes for CDR, for Yamalube, for WBR. We'll get to those in a second. But then on the Tuesday, we got to ride the 27 model. Now, that was all great, but as per that 2 nights, on the Monday night before the Tuesday 27 model ride, we had the introduction presentation dinner, which isn't normal. But they've also included the dealers this year in a lot more sense. They haven't separated them. They include them all in one go. They had 54 dealers attend, which was massive. It was the biggest ever Yamaha launch they've ever done in pretty much the 5 years that the main guy who's been organising it has been a part of. So that tells me that it's pretty much the biggest launch they've ever done. And it was cool, but it meant that we had 16 motorcycles there to ride. And pretty much when I would ride back in from my little segment, which I didn't get long because they were sort of timing you, about 20 minutes at most, because we were fart-assing around on track at times, feeling things out. We ride back in, there'd be 2 or 3 guys there waiting to get on it straight away and ride it back out. So you didn't get heaps of time. You couldn't do whatever you wanted. We had to sort of work in with everybody, which was cool. But what I did get to do in the riding time. Now, when I first rode out on the track, you ride out on the QMP, we rode straight onto the start straight section. It's just a nice, steady, uphill, big, wide open start straight. I thought I'd just cruise along and pop a mono. It's my thing I seem to do at test days is just pop a wheelie to get it started. The motor was so free, it just stood up on the back wheel and just went. Now, I'm not usually that great at a wheelie. I can do one for a photo that's, sort of a 10, 15 meter section. I'm not usually carrying that front wheel for much longer than that because I sort of lose balance and I put it down. Not on this thing. I was shifting gears and still carrying the front all the way from basically the moment I crossed the start gate to the moment I put it down in the first turn. And the motor was so free and stable and not sort of vibrating around. I just felt like I could stand on top of the bike and hold that wheelie position for eternity. And as I was doing it, I'm like, this is weird. This isn't something I've really done before. And I'm just cruising down. I'm like, this is cool. The bike felt light. And I was like, wow, okay. So we put it down, tipped it in, turned the corner, went for some power. Now, QMP has a little bit of a twisty bit and there's a bit of a step down and you end up in a little valley. In a little pocket, you turn right and you go up and climb up the hill. Now, when I turned and started to look up for the climb, I went, right, I'm going to see what this thing can do. So I just screwed it on the stop. And I went to shift gear and I picked from second to third out of the corner and I left it in third thinking I'm going to have to hit fourth part way up. I left it in third the whole way up this thing. And it kept revving and revving and revving. But it wasn't just revving for revving's sake. It was pulling and it didn't feel like it needed the next gear. So it was such a free feeling motor. It was awesome. It's hard to describe sometimes what you're going through on these motorcycles, but the motor just did what it should do. I didn't have to shift it. I didn't short shift it to save, to keep traction. I just revved and shifted and just revved to the moon. And I got to the top of the corner, pitched it sideways, drifted around the top of the corner and dropped back down into the gully again to go at the next big step up at QMP. And the bike turned. And now Yamahas are good at turning. I wouldn't say they're great at turning. I've had plenty of times where the front wheel has wanted to climb out of a rut because it's not the most nimble turner motorcycle. It's not a Suzuki, for example. And this one turns so much neater than the WR did. And I hadn't adjusted anything on this one. This was whatever they gave me. We didn't get the chance to change sags on this day because we didn't have time for that with the riders coming and going on the bikes like I described before. We didn't move the fork height in the triple clamps. I didn't even check or know what pressure's in the tires. I didn't even know what settings are on the clickers, whether they were in the stock position, whether they were even. I just turned the bike in and it turned, which was nice. It was fantastic, actually. And so it gave me some confidence in the fact that I could even adjust this even further and maybe we could get it even better. But in the stock platform, I almost didn't do anything to it other than just move the clutch lever down because it was a bit high from where they got it off the trailer. And we were away. This thing is fantastic. Stock map, didn't even bother looking at the second map that was in the bike. The stock map was quite good. I was quite comfortable with it. It was awesome. Now, let's get to a quick negative while we're here. I just can't stand Yamaha stock grips. Those black, chunky, harsh things are horrid. They tear my hands up. They're fat. They're not soft and subtle. They're really harsh and coarse, and they just tear my hands to pieces, and I get forearm pump ASAP. Some people must like them. Somebody must like them at Yamaha. Either that or they've got a stack load of them, packed up in the shelves and they're just continuing to roll them out. But I can't wait for the day that they change those. They are terrible. I also don't like the bar bend, but that's just a nitpicker. I could get away with it. I just prefer a flatter bar. These ones are quite swept back, a little bit tall too. I run very low bars and very straight bars. So I'm changing those straight out. But other than that, I'm pretty sweet with the rest of the setup. I'm not sold, like I said, on the rear brake just yet with that change to a smaller disc. And whether the power is going to be there or the fade's going to be there, we'll have to see it over a longer stint and a longer ride. But those things really that's all I can complain about. So if we keep looking through the list, the front end grip was really good. The front brake power was fantastic. The ergonomics of the bike were exactly what I expected. It's basically the same cockpit. I don't think there's any real changes in that side of things from the WR the year before. All that felt great. I didn't have any issues at all. I jumped well. I even got a couple of my tiny little whips going. Now, I say tiny because they are tiny. You have to get a microscope out with on the camera with a massive zoom to tell that I'm doing it. But it did what I wanted it to do. Man, there's a couple of spots on that track at QMP where they didn't fully prep it, but it was prepped-ish after the National, but there's a few sections that got really nasty because it wasn't really, ripped deep or anything. They just sort of smoothed out a couple of sections. So there was still the braking and acceleration bumps in some sections from the National, and you'd expect to get some head shake or some coarse, violent impacts through there. Those suspension changes have really made a difference to these motorcycles where there was a harsh sort of through an acceleration bump on an exit of a corner. It's not there. It's a smoother ride on those initial chop, which is something I'm sure a lot of you out there are going to be stoked to have, because those are the sections of track that can either tear your hands up, fatigue your arms and your body from trying to hold yourself on the bike as it does that, or if you're a guy that sits down a lot, you get in a chapped ass from those sections and the seat is trying to ram you in not a pleasant way. So that little bit of plushness on that initial bump absorption, very much appreciated from this test rider. So yeah, good job on that initial setting from Yamaha guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. And I just remembered too, I'm still no good with a brand new Yamaha seat. For whatever reason, the Yamaha seats, when they're brand new, are very much a rounded shape and firm, and they sit into a certain area of your gluteals that is not pleasant for me. I don't know what it is, whether it's the shape of my ass, and I'm a skinny ass, as they say, with a bony ass points, my PSISs. That's, a physio term there. That's the uni coming out. You can look that up, PSIS. But yeah, they just sit into there. Now, as soon as I'd ridden it, because I was the first one on this bike in the morning, so it was firm. By the time I got back on it for the second session, so we had a couple of people go on it between I got on the next one, I didn't notice it. So obviously they break in quickly, but yeah, that first ride, I'm not loving that seat. But by the time the second and third ride go around, it's just fine. So very, very interesting to watch how that breaks down. But it's not breaking down to the point that it's trash. It softens up and lets your butt be in a nicer position while it's on it. All right, let's get to it. So who is this bike for? Oh, actually, sorry, hydraulic clutch. We talked about it a little bit. I didn't even notice it, man. It's so simple and smooth. And yes, when you look at the bike as you walk up to it, that reservoir sits up like a donkey's you-know-what. But it doesn't actually change the feel, the frequency of the ease of the pull, the way the motor adapts. Yes, if I'm Cooper Webb, if I'm Hayden Deegan, I'm probably nitpicking the crap out of it. But for everybody else, you're going to love it. It's great. Go with it. It's a fantastic addition to these machines. So yeah, stick with it. All right, who's this bike for? Now, I wrote something like this with the 450 because usually 450 scares people, right? Like they think, oh, there's a lot of power with that machine, I don't think I should do the 450. The 250 is more my thing, but I do have to rev it harder, which means I have to ride it a bit harder and I get fatigued, so I don't then ride as much, and maybe I should go for a 450. Well, the beauty of the power tuner for both a 450 and a 250 You can turn both these machines into a pussycat or into an absolute raging dog. These power tuners can make these machines do whatever you want to the motor without adding a single part or removing a single part. You just tune it up or you tune it down. How aggressive the throttle is, how docile the throttle is. It's all in the Power Tuner app. So basically this bike means that anyone can get on it. Now, the interesting part was Blake Bohannon was out there. Now, yes, he's an 85cc world champion, but he's a midget. Not literally, but he's a small dude, right? He's a small, skinny, petite 13-year-old kid, and he's out there ripping around on it. No problems whatsoever. My wife, Jen, is a shorter statured lady. She can't get on the bike and put 2 feet down. She's got one leg on the ground and the other leg's dangling in the air, half over the seat. Have a look at our video. You'll see her get on. She's not the tallest. Unfortunately, that's just how she's built, right? But she gets on it. She rides it. She rode the same settings. It's no dramas. We adjust the bars and the grips and the levers, and you get that positioning right for them versus me versus someone who's a really tall giraffe, right? Everyone can get on this bike and make it work with a couple of small tweaks to the ergos in terms of the bars and the grips and the lever positions, and away they go because the power can be manipulated through your phone. Job done. Get a different set of springs if you need to go up or down for your weight or your speed from Technic Motorsport, and you're away on this machine. It's that good. So pretty much anyone can get this bike and ride it or race it and have a fantastic time on it. So basically, let's wrap up the 250, the 27 250 from Yamaha Motor Australia. This machine is a massive step forward from its 26 counterpart. The 2027 model has changed that much stuff that you actually notice that is actually worthwhile and felt on the track within seconds of you doing it. You're crazy if you don't upgrade to a 2027 model, in my opinion. There is that much advantage to this motorcycle over the previous one that you are literally behind if you are not getting onto this new version. So if you're on the fence about getting an upgrade, play this back. You're going to want it. You're going to need it, particularly if you're a racer and you're going to match up against your buddies. Having this thing is going to be like having the cheat code. It's that good. From the motor to the chassis to the suspension, you're going to notice all three. The Moto is going to stand out massively to you because it did to me. It is so free. It doesn't have that, shut the throttle. It falls. It wants to rip underneath you backwards. It just goes to the moon with the revs. You can tell that it's going high with the revs. You might not know in terms of an actual number of what it is, but you can feel it and it's just going. It's so good. Those finger followers have made a massive, massive change to this motor, not to mention the compression ratio, the cam chain, the valves, all of it. It's better. It's just better. They definitely haven't gone backwards. They've gone like 15 steps forward. It's that much better. So check it out. Get yourself the 2027 model. Now let's do a little bit of a teaser. We're going to flip over. We're going to talk about the day we got to ride the race team bikes. Now this is something that's happened last year as well. It was sort of a bit of in 2026 when they did it at the 450 launch, it happened for us. We got to ride Jed Beaton's bike. Now I felt at the time that they did that because Jed was out injured with his fractured femur and the bike was sitting there anyway. And they're like, oh, what the hell? We'll let the media have a go. There's only a handful of them here. Not everybody wanted to do it either, which I thought was crazy. Who turns down a chance to ride a CDR Yamaha? Not me, that's for sure. So I got on it, spun some laps, loved it, thought it was wicked. Obviously thought his clutch position was stupid high and couldn't get a hold of it. But other than that, I could have taken that bike and I could have raced it, right? It was that good and across the board that good. Well, this time around, I feel like Yamaha felt like they had to outdo even themselves from the year before because they had all three of their teams. They had the WBR team, which is basically your MX3 guys. They had the Yamaha Yamalube team there, which is your MX2. And then they had CDR Yamaha, which is your MX1 bikes. And they had each of the bikes there straight off the track from the Sunday before, on there ready to go for the media guys, and we could basically go and rip any one of those machines. Now, I didn't get on all of them because the mechanics were riding them as well, but we did take turns at the bikes we got to. I got to ride Lala Turner's bike, I rode Noah Ferguson's bike, I rode Aaron Tanti's bike, and I rode Jed Beaton's bike. I got to say, I was pretty stoked at the end of that day. How cool is that, right? I rode team bikes across all three of them. It was wicked. There is some interesting things about each of their bikes that I'm going to quickly go through, but I'm going to tell you that I've got some videos with Lala, with Noah, with Aaron Tanti about their bikes that I'm going to put up on YouTube. So you're going to have to check those out because I'm not going to give everything away here. I'm going to give you the cliff notes here for this one. But their bikes are sensational. Let's start with Lala Turner's. As you'd expect, she is a very short girl, but she's super strong and she's super aggressive on the motorcycle, but she has good technique too. She stands a lot of the time. Now, when we spoke to her mechanic, Mike Ward, he gave us a bit of a rundown on some of the things that they changed on her bike and why they changed it on her bike because of her technique. And he goes, you're going to notice these things straight away. And yeah, dead set, you do. Her bars are cut down. They're narrower, massively narrow. They reckon they cut about 20 mil off either end of them. So that's heaps narrow. Her front brake is dead set useless. It's almost a clutch lever feeling on the front brake. I went for it in the first turn and I thought I was going to die because I overshot the corner because there was nothing there. It's that weak. So she clearly doesn't use the front brake. The grips are small as they can be in terms of diameter. But there is a seat bump on that that's basically right as far forward as it can get because she's so short that when she does sit down, she needs to be so far forward on the machine that it's just a long way forward. So when I sat down, and I'm 5'9", when I sat down, which is 177 centimeters, when I sat down on it, it was basically, excuse the language, but it's tickling my area in front of me, basically, because I'd sat over it essentially. And I didn't mean to sit down. I didn't sit back. I just sat where I would normally sit into a bike, and yeah, it was in front of me. So, excuse me, it's very far forward. But her motor was just basically a woken up 250F motor. Now, keep in mind, I actually think the 27 model was better in stock form than her race bike was because it was a 26 model. So if you've just been listening to me rage on about the engine for the 27 model, Lala's bike was actually had work done to it, not massively, but had work done to it, which was solid. And I rode it before I rode the 27 model and I thought it was good. And then I rode the 27 model and it's better than Lala's race bike, put it that way. So it was pretty good motor. It was just a bit more woken up, a bit lively. I actually wouldn't say it was as good as my map and my airbox gap change on my WR, but she likes her motors differently, right? But her bike was great. Jen rode it. Jen thought it was great. It fitted her size. She liked the power application. She liked the suspension, the front brake, meh. But Jen thought it was a great bike. I thought it was a great bike. A couple of the other media guys thought it was their best bike of the ones they rode that day. So that says a lot that bike for MXW class champ is impressing that many people. All right, Noel Ferguson's bike, his MX2 bike, Yamaha team. I got to race that bike as well. That was the bike. We did a bit of a media. We had a relay race at the end of the day. We had a rider, 2 media guys, and a mechanic. So 4 riders. You had to do 2 laps each of QMP. And, you know, we went for it. Dead engine start, changing over. We had a hairband as the relay baton. My team got the dub. That's right. We got the win. I had Noel Ferguson. I had Ben Dutton. I had Lockie Stanford I think he was riding for Dirt Action at that point, and myself. And we got the dub. That's right. Number 1. It was kind of cool leading laps, actually. That was cool in front of those guys. Anyway, so yeah, I got to race his bike, but his rear brake is so high that you would touch it everywhere you moved your foot. Everywhere you moved your foot, you were standing on that brake, and it was so touchy, it would lock the wheel everywhere. So you basically had to put your toes on the pegs and ride balls of the feet so that you wouldn't touch the rear brake. which he did. He told me in an interview he does on purpose. So that drove me nuts because I'm not a great ball of my feet rider. Being an enduro rider, we got to move around a lot more. We got to get to the brake a lot more, gears a lot more. We're not sort of holding gears for as long and standing over jumps. You know, enduro riders are much shorter segments, so you're moving your feet around a lot more. You still do use balls of your feet, but it's not as prominent a technique. So it was no good for me. Everything else on the bike, yeah, it wasn't again, he had a fairly bent bar, but everything else on the bike was fairly neutral. I actually didn't mind it. It was pretty good. When I raced it too and I pushed it, the suspension came in and I could feel that firmness, but capability. So that was really good. It was a bit stronger motor than Lala's, and I like that too. But if we're going to talk motors, there's nothing like the feel of a CDR 450 motor. Now, last year when I rode Jed Beaton's bike, it blew my socks off. There was a point on Appen circuit where you're up the high end of you're furthest away from the start gates, and you do the U-turn and you go long straight and you hit the step up. There's a big step up. And I could sit in that corner and go, rah, and I was over the step up. Like it didn't even happen. And I thought that was pretty wicked compared to the stock 450, which I had to sort of work a bit to get to that point and get over it. Still got over it easy, but it was nowhere near like what I did on Beaton's bike. So that stuck with me, that thing was super strong and mellow and usable and plush and playful and just cool. It all stuck with me, as well as the clutch lever position. Now, when I got on Beaton's bike, it was exactly the same as I remembered, except the clutch lever had come down. Jesse, his mechanic, told me that he's actually changed bars this year. They're a little bit straighter, not much because I still felt fairly swept to me, but a little bit straighter. But it also meant that he'd put his clutch lever down a little bit to change the angle with the bar change. So that made a lot of sense that it had come around in that sense. So that was actually easier for me to ride. Everything else on the bike was pretty much exactly the same. Jed has barely touched his setup in a couple of years now with CDR. He's that stoked on it. Yes, they've had the model changes in terms of the engine mounts and the chassis changes and the couple little motor changes and whatnot. But generally speaking, his setup is still exactly the same. So that bike felt the same. It felt familiar. I could ride it all day. Then I got on Tanti's bike. Now, I wanted to get on this bike because he told me beforehand that you're going to notice my motor. And I'm like, oh, why? Why am I going to notice your motor? Didn't give me the details. Craig Dax says to me, oh, you've ridden Beaton's bike. I'm curious to see your feedback when you ride Aaron's. And I'm like, why? And he goes, the motor is different. And I'm like, everyone's saying the motor's different. The motor's different. Now, I've come to realize in my own riding that I really like a punchy bottom end machine that goes from bottom to mid, super strong, and then just is pretty much a stock thing from there up because I didn't use it that much, right? And that's where I get I'm all in little bits of movement on my throttle. So I like that punchiness, right? Well, I got on Tanti's bike and that thing is an animal. It is so, like, it's not just an animal, it's an angry animal. It's growling at you every chance you get. It is so strong compared to Beaton's bike. Beaton's bike looks like a 50cc bike, not a 450 compared to Tanti's. Tanti's is an animal. I can't describe to you enough how strong this motor is and how responsive the motor is. And even when you shut off into a corner, the noise coming out the back of it, and it's the same pipe as Beaton's, as Tanti's, but the noise coming out of it still tells me that it's pissed off and it wants to go again. It is insane how strong it is. I loved it. I wasn't as stoked on his positioning and his balance of the bike suspension-wise. It felt a little front high and a little front stiff for me. But I did like his grips compared to Beaton. Beaton actually runs lock-on grips, which I thought was odd, but he likes it apparently, but it thickens up the grip. So he must have a bit bigger, stronger hand than me. I like small, thin grips and, just all rubber, no lock-on to take out some of that vibration. But yeah, Tanti's setup, If I could take Tanti's motor and put it in Beaton's bike and my bars and grips on it, I think I'd steal that bike from CDR. They'd never get it back again. Tanti's motor will knock every sock you've ever owned off you, not just the socks you're wearing. That's how strong that thing is. It was, if you ever get the chance to pull the throttle on it while it's running, do it. It's a feeling. The kids say it's a vibe. This is a vibe. Dead set. Beaton's bike is great. Tanti's motor is insane. Just put it that way. So both those machines were unreal. The fact we got to do those rides on those machines across the day and we got to ride them all was cool. Thank you very much to Yamaha Motor Australia for letting us do those things. It's one of the cool parts of these intros is when the teams are there, one, because you get to talk to the riders and the team managers and mechanics, but two, that when they have the bikes there, you get to look them over and ask questions. But the fact that they're letting us on them and then talk about them and do stories on them and whatnot, even better. It's so cool. The Australian teams are just an open book in that sense. They're basically giving us whatever we asked for. They were talking about it. So, from the fact that like Tanti says they've got a different length rear shock, the shock shaft is a different length to stock. They've got extended length subframes. They're longer. Things like that. There's so many things on those bikes that are just different as well. The parts wise, they've got an enormous list, and the attention to detail with the wire tying is insane. The mechanics do such a good job there. Alistair, Troy, Jesse, Gary Ben, those guys are next level at the CDR. Mike and Jolie and Jesse, Ben. All the other ones, forgetting some of you guys' names, I apologize, but all the work that those guys do across the three Yamaha teams is insane. They seriously do an very impressive job. So to have us out there and do that was insane. Thank you for that. Then they'd be able to have dinner as a group with the dealers, the riders, the team managers, all the Yamaha crew. That was insane as well. We had a very impressive night there. Not stoked on the shower pressure at the hotel or the Wi-Fi or the phone signal at any of these places. We weren't able to get as much content out as we would like to during those things. Just unfortunately, moto venues don't always have, the best of phone signals. I'm sure you've been to a track where you had no signal. Well, that's QMP. And then unfortunately where we stayed didn't have phone signal either. And the Wi-Fi was just dog poo slow. So yeah, it wasn't very good. And neither was the shower head. I'll bring that up one more time. All right. But what a couple of days with Yamaha. The new model, the 27 model 250 is insane. Go and check it out at your local dealer. If you need any input from me more than what I gave you here, please hit me up on my Instagram or email info@alwaysmoto.com. Ask me whatever you need. We can have it, as long as you're not a psycho, I'll give you my number. We can have a phone chat about it. If it helps you get across the line with why you should or shouldn't buy it, happy to help you. I don't care either way, whether you buy it or you don't. I'm not affiliated as such. Yamaha has given us a bike to ride, but they're not paying me to say this. So I'm happy to give you the direct info if you need. So get in touch. We can talk about it. Make sure you check out the fullnoise.com.au article as well. Go and check out some of the other guys. My mate Aaron from MC News has got a story up. My mate Dan from Bike Review, they've got a story up. Their opinions are different to mine. They have different riding skills and levels than mine. Go and check it out, see what they think of it. I'm sure we're all on similar levels in terms of thought process with the machine and the changes. But check out some of those if you need to. There's some other good guys that are out there that can be trustworthy sources for you. So look, I think wrapping this thing up, the Yamaha machine has made a lot of changes. They're all visible, feelable, and worth having been done. Great job to Yamaha for putting it all together. The intro was wicked. The race team bikes was super impressive. I'm going to remember that for a long time until they do it again, basically. And winning that relay race was a highlight of my weekend, a couple of days. Having the wife there to do it with us. She was part of one of the teams as well. She got to ride with, actually, let's break some news. Lux Turner was there with his sister Lala. Jen was on the team with Lux. He was on a 27 model with some, works parts put on it. But Lux is going to be back for MX2 Supercross this year with the Yamaha team again. So hopefully he's going to be back here and trying to get that championship that he unfortunately didn't get last year because he broke his wrist in Melbourne. But he will be back here for Australian Supercross in the summer, which will be wicked to have Lux Turner back with the Yamaha crew. And he's sticking around with Bar-X next year when they go to Husky as well. So broke some news there. Pretty cool. Got it all from a few reliable sources on the day, let's say. All right. That's it. If you have any questions, get in touch. So thank you for watching. We didn't do this on video because we said we already had a short video out. This is me testing some gear before we go to America. Now, the American side of things. You are going to want us to be subscribed to our YouTube channel. You're going to be want to checking out whatever we put up here. We're going to have pre-race, post-race shows from Unadilla, Budds Creek, and Ironman. We're going to somewhere that you are going to want to be at every single time we're posting about it. We're going to have some content that pretty much not many people are going to get in this small space of time. Come along for the ride. It will be worth it. Trust me. Stick around. We're flying out Wednesday morning. We're going to be at Unadilla Friday. It's going to be wicked. So stay on board with us for that. Now, thanks for listening. Appreciate it, guys and girls. As always, supporting us. Drop comments on our on our posts, please. It helps us. Like it, share it, subscribe, follow it, whatever, all that. Don't forget to send your t-shirt orders into our email, info@alwaysmoto.com. Check out all the written articles. We've got a bunch coming out for the Yamaha and a few parts that we put on the YZ250F over on fullnoise.com.au. So check those out. That's it for this show. Thanks to Technic Motorsport, Duramoose.com.au, Yamaha Motor Australia, Barkbuster handguards, Funnel Web filters, Pivot pegs, and Tech 167 3D printing for the show support. Thanks to the wife and kids for letting me get this done, and the wife for coming along to the intro and helping me get all of this content done. And we'll see you at the track.